Hey folks, this is Kelani. With the Battle for Azeroth Alpha underway, we're able to see quite a few changes that seem to be planned for the next World of Warcraft expansion. It looks like hunters are under the microscope this time around, with their specs changing quite significantly, but there's also some interesting changes coming to the way hunter pets work. No, we're not going back to having to feed the little critters every few hours to keep them happy, but this change should remind you a little of how pets used to be quite a while ago. Each family of pet will be restricted to just one specialization, so bears can only be tenacity, cats can only be ferocity, that kind of thing. If you've played hunter at all semi-recently, you should know your pet can be any spec, no matter what family it comes from. All pets across the board were basically made the exact same thing, so you didn't have to use specific ones for specific purposes. That's going to change if Battle for Azeroth gets its way. So let's break down the changes coming to hunter pets, what it actually means for our utility, and whether or not it's a good move. Remember that this is still info from the alpha, so it's all subject to change and might not reflect the finished product. Right now, pets are pretty straightforward. You pick the one you like the look of, and that's more or less the only meaningful choice you have left. Back in the day, different pets had different abilities, some did more DPS while others survived much easier. It seems like that ended up being too complicated because right now every pet will do the same amount of damage no matter what family it comes from. All of the special abilities have been watered down to almost nothing with the exception of Lust and Battle Res. If you aren't running a pet with one of those two abilities, you're probably doing it wrong, but your DPS wouldn't really have mattered providing you had your pet in the ferocity spec. If you wanted to do something a little difficult and needed your pet to be a beefy tank, all it took was a quick swap to tenacity. The same pet can be all three specs after all. It would seem as though Blizzard wants to change that, and I wonder if their main focus behind these changes is to make choosing your pet a more meaningful choice. If these changes do go live, each family of pets will be assigned into the ferocity, tenacity, or cunning specializations. Some examples are bears, turtles, and gorillas being tenacity pets, cats, moths, and raptors being ferocity pets, and bats, boars, and dragonhawks being cunning pets. Right now, these specializations will change how your pet attacks, how much health they have, how much damage they take, and even what movement abilities they gain, but these changes make specializations even more meaningful. Each spec is given two unique abilities. Ferocity pets give both the pet and the hunter 3% leech, and allow the hunter to use Primal Rage, increasing party members' haste by 30% for 40 seconds. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's Lust. All ferocity pets are now able to use Lust. Tenacity pets increase the pet's and hunter's health by 10% and allows you to use Survival of the Fittest, reducing the damage you both take by 20% for 6 seconds. I don't even know where to start talking about these bonuses, but the cunning ones are interesting too. A cunning pet gives you both 8% increased movement speed and gives you the Master's Call ability, which hasn't changed. Remove roots and slows etc. from the pet and target and make them immune for a short duration. Let's have a chat about these bonuses because they're kind of crazy. The leech from Ferocity is kind of so-so, but 3% isn't actually all too bad, especially if you're taking constant damage from an AoE during an encounter. It could add up to quite a bit of healing. The Lust ability is what seems crazy. No matter what pet you have, as long as it comes from a Ferocity family, it can use Lust. No more having to run around with a Netherray or a Corehound. Any old cat, raptor, or pretty much anything else with claws can Lust for your entire raid team. It's almost a given that any single hunter would have at least one Ferocity pet, so every hunter has the potential to use Lust for their group without having to go out of their way to obtain the correct pet. Even though that seems very strong, I think the tenacity abilities are the most powerful. 10% max health just for having a tenacity pet is pretty bonkers. Folks will do anything these days to get a slight edge when they're playing competitively, especially in Mythic Raiding and Mythic Plus. Add to that a 20% damage reduction on a 3-minute cooldown, and it's pretty awesome for any situation where you need to take just a little bit less damage from heavy hitting mechanics. Many DPS classes would kill for a 20% damage reduction cooldown. Some classes don't have any damage reduction at all. The cunning abilities are alright. Master's Call has always been great in PvP, so I guess that's probably going to be a great choice if you want to take the whole Horde vs Alliance thing to heart and start slaughtering people, and the bonus movement speed is just nice overall. Maybe hunters will have a cunning pet to run around with and another pet to actually fight with. It could be worth it if it stacks with mount speed, etc, etc. Curiously, every spec has Growl and Dash, so there's no differences with those abilities anymore. But why would anyone use a tenacity pet, I hear you cry? Surely that would be less DPS overall anyway, regardless of what cool bonuses we get. Well, you might be right, or you might be completely wrong. We haven't heard much info about the DPS of pets going into Battle for Azeroth. They seem to want to make your pet choice something that matters, but the devs balanced pet damage across the board for a reason. If a cat always did the most damage, everyone would tame a cat even if they didn't want to. Anyone who took any other pet into dungeons or raids would get complained at because they're not using the best pet. So everything was made the same. All pets do the same damage, and the only thing that matters now is the spec of the pet. But we're changing what the spec of the pet means. They give different active bonuses instead of passively changing how much damage pets do. So what if the damage of pets is still balanced across the board, even through specializations? So ferocity, tenacity, and cunning don't actually affect the pet's damage potential, just what bonus abilities you have access to. That means your damage wouldn't suffer if you wanted to run around with a cunning pet, and you wouldn't have to use a ferocity pet all the time because it does the most damage. This makes a boatload of sense to me when you look at what they're trying to change. None of the active abilities have any DPS value. They're all utility, which is what the dev team has been trying to work on with Battle for Azeroth, changing up how classes have access to utility and making sure each class brought something meaningful to the table. I guess for hunters that means we get to choose between 3 different types of utility, but we can only access one at a time. Each specialization is sure to find its own little niche. Even Master's Call could find some use in specific boss encounters if roots are involved, and overall hunters will be better as a class for these changes. From the data mined damage formulas used for the pet basic attacks, they all seem to use the same formula across specializations, so that should mean each pet hits for the same amount of damage with their basic attacks at the very least. There's something else that could point towards pets being balanced across the board. Every pet comes with a second special ability, and none of these abilities do damage. Not a single digit of DPS. Most of the pet abilities are utility based and fall into specific categories. For example, both bears and goats have the same ability, it's just named differently. When they drop below 40% health, they take 50% reduced damage for 12 seconds. Other pets can apply a hamstring effect, there's a mortal wounds effect to reduce healing, more damage reduction cooldowns, some abilities increase the pet's dodge chance, some remove enrage and magic effects from their targets, Rhylacs still have slow fall, water striders still have water walking, and cranes actually still have battle res, though I do wonder if that last one is going to change anytime soon. It seems like it's the only powerful ability left behind, and I doubt hunters will be so lucky to get both lust and battle res if the devs really are trying to limit the utility available to each class. But that's pretty much every special ability the pets get. The damage reduction cooldowns and dodge effects makes me wish we could have pet tanking back just a little bit. Maybe taunt for a few seconds once every minute. I just want to save the raid as a hunter. Is that too much to ask? But you can see these special abilities aren't going to tamper with the amount of damage a pet can output. We're still back to specializations being a choice of active abilities rather than pet damage, and personally, I love that change. But what about you? Do you think we have a meaningful choice when it comes to hunter pets? Is this going to help at all? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.